I won't deny, indeed I'll proudly admit, that I've been very critical of Train Sim World as a whole, but only because I'm passionate about the game and I still want it to be as good as it can possibly be. But at the same time, I am sick to death of Dovetail Games' awful business practices, where they normally don't fix problems that still exist in previous add-ons and instead just release more and more new add-ons on an overly frequent basis. Meanwhile, the fanboys still lap it up like a cat drinking milk. I really do wonder why these people are so obsessed with defending TSW and its developers. I don't expect DTG to do anything other than maintain the status quo, but I will not let that stop me from being brutally honest about my thoughts on TSW. To quote Brett Cooper yet again, I do think that it's important to be consistent and very clear with our criticisms and critiques, so that we don't just look weak or outraged for no reason at everything. I think she could have structured that sentence in a much better way, but I still understand the point she was trying to make. Despite my often harsh, but not baseless, critiques, I still think there are some silver linings in this game if you look hard enough, because they're just as rare as the Ertl Godred in Cull D. For this video, I want to discuss a quartet of routes that I genuinely like, and I can easily recommend all 4 to veteran players who don't have them yet, or people who are just starting out with the game. 3 of these routes are British, 1 is German, and I will be listing them in order of personal preference. First up is the Glasgow Cathcart Circle line, one of 2 Scottish routes currently in TSW, although a third one is on the way. This add-on was released in June 2021, and the version compatible with TSW4 costs $43.59 NZD at full price. From what I gather, Rivet Games helped to build this route, but it was still released as a Dovetail product. Therefore, I don't consider Cathcart Circle to be a third-party add-on. The pack includes a small selection of the suburban rail network in Glasgow, Scotland. Specifically, you get Glasgow Central and the Cathcart Circle itself, along with branches out to Neilston and Newton. Total route length is only around 20 miles, and the add-on only includes 1 train, in the form of the Class 314 electric multiple unit. It's a little weird to only see the ScotRail Saltire livery included, as it was only carried by 7 314s in real life. I saw a post on the Dovetail Live forums where someone suggested a gameplay pack featuring a carmine and cream livery for the 314, and although I hate the concept of gameplay packs in general, I don't think it'd be too much of a cardinal sin if one was made for Cathcart Circle, provided that it didn't cost any more than $5 New Zealand dollars. 16 of these units were built by British Rail Engineering Limited for the suburban lines in Glasgow, first entering service in 1979. They had an impressively long service life, with the last unit not being withdrawn until December 2019, and the final 314s to be withdrawn were units 314-210 and 314-216. All but 1 member of the class was scrapped, with Unit 314-209 going on to be converted into a prototype hydrogen train and renumbered to 614-209. At the time of uploading, I'm not sure what's going on with the converted 314. All I know is that she went to the Bowness and Kinneil Railway. As for what replaced the Class 314s, I believe it was the Hitachi-built Class 385 EMUs. And although we have the 385 in TSW, she does not have a timetable mode layer on Cathcart Circle because the route is set in 2014, long before the 385s entered service. While the route coverage is very small, and Glasgow Central looks unrealistically quiet when you're only seeing 314s, and even then, no more than 3 or 4 tracks are ever occupied at any one time, I still like the Cathcart Circle DLC because of its non-linear nature. The services are relatively short, no longer than about 36 minutes, and there is a decent amount of service variation despite it all being passenger services. All this route needs now is the addition of the Class 380 Desiro, a modern EMU that would offer a very different driving experience from the Class 314. To be clear, this footage was recorded with a scenery patch installed, link in the description. Mods are only compatible with the PC version of Train Sim World, but timetable mode and the functionality of the Class 314 are still the same across all platforms. My third favourite route is the Niddertalbahn, a short line running through a charming rural environment from Bad Vilbel to Stockheim, a distance of around 31 kilometres. This add-on was made by Train Sim Germany and released in March 2023, but it's far too expensive at its full price of 57 New Zealand dollars. Even though it's very short, and there's not a whole lot to do, I still like this route because of A, its rare status as a non-electrified/diesel only German route, and B, TSG's excellent scenery details. It's also worth mentioning that this route is set in 1992, thus providing a refreshing change from the usual modern image stuff. I wish we could get more routes set in the second half of the 20th century. Perhaps something like Lancaster to Barrow-in-Furness set in 1975, complete with the Class 105 diesel multiple unit. As for motive power, the route includes the BR628-2 diesel multiple unit in the old Deutsche Bundesbahn Mint livery, as well as the BR365 diesel locomotive in the old blue and white livery. If you've got the Mainz to Koblenz route as well, you'll also see the BR103 and BR110-3 electric locomotives occasionally rushing through Bad Vilbel or Heldenbergen-Vendecken. It takes around 55 minutes to complete a one-way trip over the full route in the BR628-2, but it's a slower and more relaxing journey than the likes of München-Hackerbrücke to Marmendorf in the BR423. The reason why it takes so long to cover the full Bad Vilbel to Stockheim route is because the speed limit is only 60 km per hour. But I don't mind the slow run because it gives plenty of time to admire the scenery. My second favourite is Blackpool Branches, the first TSW add-on made by Just Trains. This route was released in November 2023, and although the total length is only around 48 miles, it's a great non-linear setup with branches going to Blackpool North, Blackpool South, Bern-Naas and Ormskirk. And Preston is the main hub of the route, in a way. Like the Niddertalbahn, this pack costs a staggering 57 New Zealand dollars at full price, and although Blackpool presents better value for money, I don't recommend ever buying TSW add-ons at full price, as you'd be better off waiting for a sale and buying them there. The route is set in 1986, so it's effectively a time capsule, as it depicts Blackpool South Station as it was just after the old building on Waterloo Road had been demolished, as well as St Anne's-on-the-Sea in a terrible state before the original station buildings were demolished. You can also see Ormskirk Station in a condition unfamiliar to younger rail fans, as this was before the disused crossing loop was removed. The motive power scene isn't too bad, even without any other layers activated in timetable mode. The star of the show is the Class 142 Pacer, which was brand new to TSW at the time, and she is supplied in 3 liveries, namely British Rail Provincial Blue, Greater Manchester Public Transport Executive Orange, and Skipper Chocolate and Cream. You've also got the Class 47-4 from Northern TransPennine and the Class 08 from the BR Heavy Freight Pack, but these locomotives have been updated with new liveries and, in the case of the 47, alterations to the model to depict a slightly more recent variant than what you get with Leeds to Manchester. To be specific, the 47's new liveries are British Rail Large Logo Blue and Intercity, while the 08 gets an improved BR Blue livery and a special variant depicting locomotive number 08744, Wigan TMD. There's a healthy amount of service variation on this route as well. You're able to run simple local services with the Class 142, express passenger services between Blackpool North and Preston with the Class 47, or shunting duties at Preston and Blackpool North with the Class 08. And I can't forget the occasional freight runs up the former Fleetwood branch to Burninays, which are also hauled by Class 47s. My favourite run on this route is the local service from Preston to Blackpool South. It may surprise some of you to learn that my favourite route in Train Sim World is a Rivet Games product. This is the Island Line 2022 add-on, originally released in July 2022. You get the 8.5 mile long route from Ryde Pierhead to Shanklin, and it's depicted in its current state following the extensive modernisation work in 2021. Even at its full price, this add-on is not too expensive, costing $24.79 NZD. I don't blame you if you've chosen to avoid this route because of its restrictive linear nature, which doesn't leave a whole lot of things to do, especially since the Isle of Wight steam railway is not included. But I still like this route because of its northern terminus being right on the end of a ruddy pier, not to mention the fascinating history of the Isle of Wight's railway network. As for the line's current motive power, the Class 484 electric multiple unit, this is an incredibly strange beast. 5 of these units exist, having been rebuilt from ex-London Underground D78 stock units by Viva Rail, and they entered service on the Isle of Wight in November 2021. The original D78 stock typically ran in 6-car formations, but the 484s were reduced to only 2 coaches due to the significantly reduced operational requirements on the island. Another thing I like about this add-on is the fact that it takes less than an hour to complete a run from Ryde Pierhead to Shanklin and return. It's only around 25 minutes each way, with a short turnaround time at Shanklin. There are very few TSW routes on which you can complete a round trip in less than 90 minutes. I think another one is Hauptstrecke Rhein-Ruhr, aka Duisburg to Bochum, although that's not as interesting as Ryde Pierhead to Shanklin. By default, the Class 484 is supplied in an ugly fictional livery due to licensing restrictions, and although you can download reskins from the Creators Club, they only apply to the player train in timetable mode. There was a mod pack that replaced the default livery with the real livery, available from the Train Sim community website, but it still hasn't been made compatible with Train Sim World 4 yet. Incidentally, while I was writing the script for this review, I realised that 3 of the 4 routes I just discussed were made by third-party developers instead of Dovetail. That says a lot, doesn't it? But I do want to mention another Dovetail route that I like, but it didn't quite make the top rankings, and that's Nachwerke Dresden, also known as Riesa to Dresden. I like this route because of its decent length, multiple branch lines, and excellent service variation. You can run the usual S-Bahn, regional and intercity passenger trains plus mainline freight and shunting at a chemical plant all on the same route. My favourite service to run on this route is either the S-Bahn line S1 from Meissen-Triebischtal to Dresden Hauptbahnhof, or RE18 and RE15 from Dresden Hauptbahnhof to Grossenhain. And my favourite unit to drive on this route is this 3-car variant of the BR442 Talent 2 electric multiple unit. But I'm not at all happy with the inclusion of only one Talent 2 variant. DTG should have added the 5-car BR442-3 as well as the 3-car BR442-1. So there you have it, 4 of my favourite routes in Train Sim World 4. Along with an honourable mention from the Dovetail stable. Feel free to leave a comment below with a list of your own favourite routes, or whether or not you agree and disagree with mine, and I dare say I'll be discussing TSW again fairly soon.